Welcome, it's Steve Light from Leading Light TV, and my special guest today is Sebastiaan from social-anxiety-solutions.com. Nice to have you here today, Sebastiaan.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
You're welcome. I'm apologising because I can't pronounce your surname. How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, that's a bit of a difficult one for everyone. My last name is van der Schrier.
Thank you. Okay, so the reason I wanted to interview you today is you've been through issues of social anxiety and come out the other end, which is an inspiration for everyone who has these kind of issues. And first of all, I just wanted to talk to you about how did all this start. I've read your story, and I can relate to a lot of things that you've went through. So how did this sort of thing start, and through your childhood and stuff? So
well, I'll try to give the short version. Otherwise, I'll be talking for a while. But I didn't have any social anxiety when I was growing up. I was a pretty outgoing kid, and but at age 11, in fact, I was not so nice, but I was the strongest of the class, and that kind of comes with a certain authority, and I would tease people sometimes, and at one point, my teacher kind of got back at me, or at least that's what I think she did. I was kind of the teacher's pet. I really loved my teacher. She was awesome. I would even go at home to eat at her house, like that, that close. But at some point she embarrassed me in front of the class. And from that moment, and I got bright red, and everyone was pointing at me and laughing at me because now I was the guy who was, who was made fun of. Yeah. And from that moment forward, my ears became a very sensitive subject. And the funny thing, I don't even have that big of ears, but it really became something that was really sensitive. Yeah. And from that moment, embarrassment showed up in certain situations. I would become embarrassed, and because I had that fear of becoming embarrassed, I started to feel anxious in certain situations, and eventually that led up to around age 15 or 16 when girls came into the picture. I became really nervous and really anxious because now I had to talk to girls, and I had no idea what I was going to say to them, and I felt insecure about myself, and I also had this blushing problem of the last person I would want to become embarrassed in front of was a girl that I would like. So when there were girls around, I already felt uncomfortable, and when there were girls around that I was attracted to, and there were other people around, I was massively, massively anxious, and that kind of kept getting worse and worse and worse. I'm not sure if you can relate to that, Steve, but the anxiety, if you don't do anything about it, it tends to worsen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Has that been the experience for you too?
Yeah, well, I really like the saying, "What you resist persists." And I think it was right. You said that, and if you're holding on to the anxiety, running away from it, it just appears worse in your mind. But when you face it, most times it just dissipates. Even I find if I'm just honest about the way I'm feeling with people, it kind of gets rid of it. And that's the thing, we're embarrassed to say that we're fearful, and that's the main thing, is it's the kind of vulnerability of admitting you're scared of something.
Right, speaking your truth and being courageous enough to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
However, that can be a massive, massive challenge to do that, and that's what it was for me. And because I had this big ego, right? I had this whole idea that I was this cool guy, and if I were to show any type of vulnerability that I back then framed as weakness, then I would lose my cool guy status and all that nonsense that was going on. So, I think people have different ways of going about how to actually overcome that, and that's probably going to lead into one of your upcoming questions about EFT. I don't know how far you want to go with this story, but that's kind of what my social anxiety experience was.
Yeah. So things started to change for you, didn't they? When you became aware that, I'm not sure if you became aware of the term social anxiety or if you became aware that the way you were thinking could be changed. This was, before you discovered EFT. Do you want to say a bit about how you started looking into personal problems and stuff? That's quite funny, actually. So a big thing was circled around girls and embarrassment, and that then made me become anxious in just about any situation. Like, I would wake up anxious, fearing all the events that I would go through that day and who I would run into, and so it was really bad, but it was mainly circled around girls. That was like at least a very big part of it. And you have the internet, and at one point I got some spam email, or I was on the internet, and it was a questionnaire about how satisfied I was with my dating life. And there were 3 options. One, A was like, couldn't be better. B was like, well, there could be some improvement. And C was like, yeah, it's totally shit. And obviously it was totally shit. I was a virgin. It was just a disaster because I was extremely anxious when I was around girls that I was attracted to. So, but I was so afraid that someone would magically find out that I would pick option C, that to stay safe I picked option B. And that led me to a sales letter from some sort of a dating program, and I read that sales letter, and it was like, are you afraid of rejection? When there's a beautiful girl around, does your heart stop? Do your mind race? Are you looking for ways to get out of the situation? And it was like, yes. Yeah. And like everything spoke to me like, God, I gotta have this. And I bought that program, and what I learned in it, what was most important, what I learned in it is that once you get your inner self, your inner psychology in order, once you change your negative limiting beliefs to positive beliefs, then you overcome the challenge that you have. So when you walk into a social situation and you believe that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you have to be perfect to be accepted, people are mean enough to get you, and the world is not safe, then obviously you're filtering the world through these beliefs, and you end up feeling you're unsafe, and then your subconscious mind is firing up the fight, flight, freeze response, and you feel anxious. And I learned there that if you change your beliefs from negative to positive, you can overcome your problem. I didn't know it was social anxiety at the time.
Yeah. I just thought, I'm afraid of girls. And but later on I found out that what I was dealing with was actually severe social anxiety disorder, because it was generalized and in all situations.
Yeah.
And there was really something so exciting that I found that information. I was like, wow, I can actually overcome this. There is a way to get out of what I'm into, because I had no idea that I could change my mind, that I could change these beliefs. Because I just thought, this is just the way I am. I used to be pretty confident, and now I've become someone who's totally not confident and anxious, and that's just the person that I am. And so that really opened up, I'm 28 now, and I think this is when I was like 16 or 17, maybe 18, so at least like a decade of self-help journey that continues still today.
Yeah, well, that's pretty amazing that you found out that so young, because I found out about social anxiety around the same time, but I didn't know that you can actually change your beliefs inside until much later on, and that was very fortunate of you to discover that, because when I
was so grateful.
Yeah, that's really cool. When I first found that, I only saw the view of doctors or more of the clinical side, which focuses on the symptoms rather than the holistic approach, I guess. And it wasn't until much later that I looked at NLP and all other kinds of technologies and stuff like that. And one of those was, I'm actually trained in TFT myself, and you're
therapy.
and you're an actual coach in you're an actual EFT coach now, aren't you? So do you want to say a bit more about how you got into EFT and how you decided you wanted to become a coach in it and help other people?
Sure. I'm a personal coach specialized in helping people overcome social anxiety disorder, but EFT is one of the main tools that I use. I combine it with NLP, for example, and various other techniques, but EFT is the main thing, the weird tapping. So I'm not sure if the people that are listening to this are familiar with what it is or not.
Some may not. So maybe you could just say a few lines about what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just tell you how I found out about it. So then I'll have an introduction to it. So I learned that you can change your beliefs. Change your belief from I'm not good enough to I am good enough. From people are mean to people are nice. And that was a revelation. But then I was like, how do you go about that? Well, I was told you need to visualize, you need to do affirmations. There are all these NLP exercises where you change, I did hypnosis, timeline therapy, like a whole bunch of things, and journaling, and it helped a little bit, but it was very, very, very slow. And I also did change your thoughts and face the things that you fear to find evidence of your new positive belief. And that stuff works, but it takes quite a long time, and that old negative belief is still there. So I kept searching for something that would be more effective in overcoming negative limiting beliefs. And eventually I found a video on YouTube where a guy was doing EFT, and he said, with this you can overcome any negative emotion or any negative belief that you have. And I was like, yeah, right. I mean, where do I have to sign up? Where do I have to pay? What's this scam here? But I was desperate enough to eventually give it a try, and it didn't work. And I kept trying. Eventually I did a workshop, and so what EFT is it's a psychological form of acupuncture. Acupuncture, I guess, Steve, with the needles and everything. This is like that, but instead of using needles, you tap with the tips of your fingers on specific points on your body where a lot of acupressure points come together, and that stimulates the amygdala, and that then releases certain hormones that calm down the fight, flight, freeze response. And it looks incredibly weird, it looks stupid, but it's insanely powerful. And so it didn't work for me, but I kept going, and then eventually at that workshop I got results with the people that I was working with, and but they couldn't get any results with me. And then the workshop leader eventually started to work with me, and he then had me talk about the fact that I didn't have a girlfriend, that I didn't have any sex, something that was really important to me at the time. And I was talking about that in front of all the other people. So I got bright red, right? I got massively embarrassed, as you might be able to imagine. And as that was happening, he's like, okay, now tap. So stimulate those meridian points. And I started tapping. And as I started started tapping, I noticed these, the shame, the embarrassment, the humiliation, just releasing from my body. It was kind of like a drain, like a plug from a drain was pulled out, and it just flushed away out of my body. And in place for that came a feeling of relaxation and acceptance.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned earlier, I stopped resisting it. I accepted it, and what the tapping does is it lets go of the negative emotion that is connected to the problem that you have.
Yeah.
And so that's what EFT is, and that's how I found out about it. And once this worked, once I had this experience, he's like, okay, now try to get that feeling back. Try to get that humiliation, embarrassment back. And I couldn't. And I was able to then talk about it, and I was like, God, this is amazing. This is faster progress than I've made in these years of NLP and facing my fears together. This is just insane. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to study this, and I'm going to invest as much money until I'm completely free of anxiety. And then I'll get into coaching. And I started coaching a little over 3.5 years ago, and made a lot of mistakes in the past, but tried my best, tried to help as many people as possible, learned from the EFT masters, invested a lot of time, resources, energy in it, and it's fantastic, and I love what I do, and gets people amazing results, and EFT's awesome.
Wow, that's so amazing. The way you described EFT, that's the best description I've ever heard, actually. The way you described it,
Thank you.
It was so succinct. It was, I had trouble myself when I was learning it, because I don't really use it for other people, but sometimes at my group, I'll do, have you heard of collarbone breathing? It's different because EFT,
sure.
It's like a TFT technique, and I use it a lot just to calm down and relax. And when people first come to the group, they can try that and then, ease into it and feel more relaxed. The thing is, it sounds...
Can I say something about that, Steve?
Yeah, sure, of course you can, yeah.
Because this is a common experience for people that try out EFT for the first time. And like I said, it didn't work for me at first either, but I kept going because I read so many testimonials and saw so many free videos. But when it doesn't work, there's a reason for why it doesn't work. And one of the common reasons is that people tap on the symptoms. So they tap on the social anxiety symptoms. So, my heart is beating fast, or, I can't think, I feel so anxious. But what you want to do is you want to tap on the reasons as to why you have that anxiety.
Yeah.
So when we're in a social situation, we don't feel safe. We're afraid of becoming embarrassed, for example. Well, when you tune into that feeling of embarrassment, that embarrassment is usually, it comes from stuff from the past. And there are a couple of traumatic memories where that embarrassment got trapped. Yeah. And you, in your day-to-day life, are still responding to those old traumas. And therefore you get that embarrassment back. So you actually need to tap on the underlying reasons for why you don't feel safe socially. And when you do that, you step by step get rid of all the reasons for not feeling safe. And as a result, you eventually get to a place where you feel safe socially. And when that is the case, you feel no anxiety anymore. And that's one thing that CBT is awesome, and changing your thoughts and facing your fears is essential and important, but there's a thing missing, and that is you need to clean up these traumatic events from the past that happened, because otherwise you still get triggered because you're still not completely safe. So a common thing that I've heard or read on forums is, you'll forever be anxious, and it's something that you have to deal with for the rest of your life. And I speak from experience, both personally and clients that I've worked with, that is not true. that is a false belief. That is just the experience when you don't get to a place where you actually feel safe socially. But with EFT, you can get yourself to a place where you feel safe socially.
Wow, that's...
So I'm sorry, I'm quite excited about this. Cause,
I'm excited too. It just... the way you've been describing things, it just, reignites my passion for when I did it originally. But what I was thinking before is the whole idea of it sounds so simple that people don't try it. You know what I mean? Because they think, well, I've been doing therapy for 2 years and I haven't changed. How is this going to help? And, you get the same with therapists as well who, they've done a degree and a master's and PhD or whatever, and then someone comes along with this new thing and they can hardly believe it because they spent all this time studying something and then TFT and EFT come along and it's so simple. It's What would you say to people who have never tried it and perhaps think it's it won't work for them or whatever? What would you say to them?
Well, for one, try it out. Right? It doesn't hurt to try it out. It's free. You can find it online for free. You can learn the basics online for free. I have a bunch of videos where I take people through a tapping routine, an EFT routine. And if you're really stuck, and by the way, what you say, right? So people say, I've been in therapy for years and it just doesn't work. There are a lot of people, and this is very unfortunate, that have given up. They have accepted that they're anxious for the rest of their life, and they're in a closed loop of whatever I try, I'm not going to succeed. And whenever they don't succeed, they get more evidence that indeed they're going to fail. And their motivation decreases and decreases and decreases and decreases until you get to a place where you feel so depressed and hopeless and helpless that you're like, God, nothing is ever going to work. And then when you're at that place, your level of skepticism goes up to the top because your subconscious mind is like, hey, it's better to be skeptical about things because if you try things, you're going to fail and you're going to hurt. So let's just don't do anything, be skeptical of everything, and, just stay stuck. And so if people that are listening to this are in that situation, find someone that is qualified in EFT, that has experience with anxiety. And I'm not the only one, okay? Try EFT masters. Lindsay Kenny is fantastic, who I learned most of my stuff from. Tanya A. Prince is amazing. Get some outside help. The beauty about EFT is that it doesn't take 100 sessions or years and years to overcome this. Every session you make progress, and it's so much faster than all the other therapies that are out there. And you can combine other therapies with this. So the concepts of cognitive behavioral therapy and neuro-linguistic programming is what I mix with EFT. That's the beauty of it. It's not a thing that stands on its own. So if you're dealing with this, there really is hope out there, and you can really overcome this. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not flawed. You don't have to deal with this for the rest of your life. There's a way out of this. And yes, it's going to take some time, for sure. But step by step, you can overcome this. Yeah.
That's awesome, that is. I'm hoping that's going to give hope to lots of people, because from my own experience, I was at that stage, and you just try all these different things, and I spent thousands of pounds, and you kind of think, is it ever going to change? And there's a lot of anger that comes with that, and frustration, and it's really sad. So anyone who's watching this, give it a try. And where's the best place to contact you? Is that through your website, social
just socialanxietysolutions.com,
Oh, does that redirect to the other one as well,
I hope so. I hope so.
All right then. So thank you for your time today, Sebastiaan. Really enjoyed it. And
thanks so much for having me, Steve. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.